Welcome to an overview of DRX 340B capabilities. One of the most important features with 340B dispensing is the ability to automatically determine if a fill or dispensing event qualifies as a 340B dispensing event. In order to make sure that something qualifies, there are a few things that have to be met. First, the doctor has to be marked as 340B eligible. So if I look at Alexandra Donovan, I can go in and register this doctor as being a doctor of the health center and mark the doctor as 340B eligible using this little slider. Once the doctor is marked as 340B eligible, they'll show up in search with the 340B tag next to their name. This will show up when you're doing a new prescription data entry as well, so you can tell that this doctor is qualified as a 340B prescribing doctor. DRX also has the capability to automatically search for find doctors and add them as 340B eligible doctors. So if you go to our doctor find tool and run a search, you can take your result set and automatically mark these providers as 340B providers. So imagine you get a list of SPI numbers or NPI numbers. You can paste them here as comma separated values, find those specific providers. And once you have that result set, you can go ahead and mark them as 340B providers. You'll see that they're all now 340B eligible. So not only can you take large updates from your EHR and load them into DRX, but we can also do this for you on a data conversion as well and take in your 340B eligible providers and mark them that way in DRX. So the first part of getting a prescription fill qualified as 340B eligible is to make sure we have the correct doctor prescribing the medication. DRX also has the ability to add a referring doctor on a prescription as well. So let's say we're doing new data entry and we pick a doctor here like Deborah Gates. Now, Deborah Gates is not a provider at the health center, and therefore this is not going to be a 340B eligible prescription. But what if a health center provider had referred a patient to this external provider? In that case, the prescription can still be eligible. And for DRX to do that eligibility checking for you automatically, you would click this Add Referring Doctor. When we do this, we can choose a 340B eligible provider as the referring doctor. And that way, when this prescription is processed, DRX will still see the doctor as an authorized doctor for 340B dispensing. So not only can the prescribing doctor be eligible, but if the prescribing doctor is not but was referred by an eligible provider, you can mark that in DRX and have DRX apply those rules as well. All right, so we've talked about doctors. Let's talk about patients. What makes a patient eligible for 340B dispensing? If we pull up a random patient here, like Karen Davis, we can go into her profile and record a medical encounter in her profile. These medical encounters will record the last time this patient had been seen by a 340B eligible doctor. So if this patient had just seen Dr. Donovan out of the health center, we can put in the encounter date and even add some notes and ICD-10 codes as well and hit save. That encounter date will be the basis of what DRX will use to check to make sure that this patient had been seen by a 340B provider at the health center within a specified timeout period. That timeout period is located and configurable in your location settings under RX options, and you can choose how many days since the last 340B medical encounter the patient must have seen a provider in order for the fill to become 340B eligible. And so when we do a new prescription and we pick Karen Davis and we choose a 340B eligible provider, DRX is now ready to make the determination if this fill is 340B eligible. Now, one note on doctor checking as well. Notice that when we add the doctor as 340B eligible, it's underneath the SPI number, and that's on purpose. The SPI number is a unique doctor identifier that identifies both the doctor and the practice location. So imagine that a doctor is a provider at a health center, but on the weekends works at an urgent care. Well, those prescriptions that come in from urgent care will have a different SPI number, and therefore those prescriptions, if they come in electronically, will not be flagged as 340B eligible. But back when the doctor goes to their 9 to 5 job at the health center, those prescriptions that come in electronically, those will be because that practice location qualifies as 340B eligible. If the prescription comes in via any other means, like a phone or a fax or something like that, in those circumstances, DRX will just check to make sure the provider is 340B eligible and won't do the practice location checking as well. So in this circumstance, we have Karen Davis, who has been recently seen at the health center. We have Dr. Alexandra Donovan, who's a 340B eligible provider at the health center. We have this prescription data entered, and let's go ahead and process this prescription. After the prescription processes, you'll notice at the top, DRX has done a 340B eligibility determination and determined that this fill is 340B eligible with this timestamp. This is how DRX displays whether or not it made this determination and checks for all of those things we just discussed on each fill. If we were to go ahead and edit this fill and choose a different doctor who is not 340B eligible and hit save, we'll go ahead and process this prescription, and you'll see that that determination has now been removed. So let's go back and choose the correct doctor and reprocess. We'll see that we have that determination created, and DRX does something really important when this happens. As soon as 340B eligibility determination is made, DRX deducts the 340B inventory from the 340B inventory group. We have a regular RX inventory group, and that's used for normal dispensing. But once 340B eligibility is determined, it automatically comes out of this 340B inventory group. And we'll talk about EDI and inventory next in this section. When EDI data supplier feeds are set up in DRX, you'll often have two supplier feeds for the same wholesaler. As in this case, we have a regular PGOI inventory supplier, and then we also have a second account used for 340B dispensing. This is pretty common. You might have a cardinal account for regular, cardinal account for 340B. And in the supplier settings, you can tell DRX which inventory group this incoming inventory should get dumped into. So in this case, the 340B supplier, all incoming invoices and order confirmation data gets put into the 340B inventory group. And for our regular wholesaler account, all of the inbound inventory will show up in our RX inventory group. When you go to place the order at the end of the night, DRX will run a purchase order and will tell you all the things you need to buy and will only show you available wholesaler options from wholesalers that are connected to your regular RX inventory group. In this case, we're only seeing PGOI options. We can also run a purchase order off of our custom inventory groups. So in this case, we have our 340B inventory group, and DRX is correctly recognizing that we can only order from wholesalers that are hooked up to this 340B inventory group. So this purchase order that we send for baclofen, rizatriptan, and so on will only go out to the PGOI 340B inventory group. And then when you run your purchase order at the end of the night, you know that when you send this order, you'll only be buying 340B replacement inventory for fills that were dispensed and qualified as 340B. Once the 340B eligibility determination has been made, DRX also allows you to have some other events occur after that. For example, on our claims, we might have a submission clarification code of 20, letting the payer know that this is a 340B eligible dispensing. And we might even put a basis of cost determination in here as well, like an O8, for example. And we can tell DRX that we actually want these rules to apply by default every time we have a 340B eligible prescription. With these rules in place, every single time we have a prescription that is evaluated as 340B eligible, we will automatically send off the 20 and the 8. You can also make these rules specific to a PCN, bin, and group combination. That way, in case there are, for example, state-funded Medicaid plans that shouldn't get these codes, those codes are not added by default in those cases. So our claim override system can automatically add these based on the 340B eligibility determination and also based on a third-party group PCN and bin information as well. So what happens if you get audited? Well, when you get audited, typically HRSA auditors require two pieces of information. First, they want to see all of your invoices you've received under your 340B wholesaling account. To do this, you just select the date range for your invoices and click Export CSV, and you'll get every invoice and every item you purchased on that invoice for this date range. The second piece they'll want to see is all of your 340B dispensing. Well, since DRX qualifies your 340B dispensing for you anyway, you can go to our prescription find tool and just simply indicate that you want to see all of your 340B eligible fills, hit the search button, allow DRX to kind of churn through your data looking for 340B qualified fills. Once the report finishes, you can click View Report, see the prescription, and choose the columns that you want visible. So for example, you could see whether or not the doctor was 340B eligible, what date the prescription was considered 340B eligible. You can put other things like your fill cost and your submitted price and so on, and all of those things which are going to be necessary for that audit. When you're done, you can hit Export as CSV, and now you have a list of all of your items you purchased for 340B dispensing, and you can see all of the fills that were eligible for 340B dispensing, which forms the basis of a response to a HRSA audit. So it's very simple to do this with DRX, and you have some guarantees that the inventory purchasing you did on your 340B account were for valid 340B dispenses because of that eligibility determination step.